The sun was setting behind the pine-covered hills when Sarah stepped into the backyard, calling for her 2-year-old son, Noah. The air was calm, filled with the scent of freshly cut grass, and her loyal German shepherd, Max, trotted beside her, his golden-brown coat gleaming in the fading light. But the usual playful laughter of Noah wasn't there. Sarah's heart began to race. She scanned the yard, her voice trembling as she called his name again. Max's ears shot up, his instincts switching from calm companion to alert guardian. Without hesitation, he bolted toward the forest edge, barking furiously. Sarah followed, her pulse pounding in her throat. Max disappeared into the trees, his barks echoing deeper and deeper. Then came a sound that froze her blood, the faint cry of her baby. She ran faster, branches whipping against her face, until she reached a clearing near the creek. There, barely a few feet from the rushing water, sat Noah, tears streaking his cheeks, his tiny legs dangling dangerously close to the... But Max was already there, standing between the child and the river, teeth bared, body tense, facing something in the shadows. Sarah squinted, her breath short. Something was moving, a wild coyote snarling, pacing closer. Max growled low, his fur standing on end, every muscle taut with determination. The coyote lunged forward, but Max met it midair, their bodies colliding with a thud. The struggle was savage, yet silent, broken only by the splash of water and the sound of growls. Sarah couldn't move. She could only watch as her dog fought for her son's life. In a final burst of strength, Max pinned the predator, forcing it to retreat into the dark. When the danger was gone, Sarah rushed to Noah, pulling him into her trembling arms. Max stood beside them, panting, a small cut on his muzzle but eyes still sharp, scanning for any remaining threat. She whispered his name, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. Max wagged his tail softly, lowering his head as if to say he had simply done what was right. But what Sarah didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Something even stranger was happening beneath the surface. That night, after Sarah tucked Noah into bed, she noticed Max sitting near the window, staring into the forest. His posture was different, alert but uneasy. Every few minutes he growled lowly, as if he sensed something no human could. Sarah brushed it off as lingering fear, but Max refused to rest. When midnight came, he stood, pacing toward the door, whining softly. Sarah hesitated, then opened it. Max slipped into the night, vanishing into the same woods where the danger had been. Hours passed. Sarah dozed off on the couch, waiting for him. Then, at dawn, the scratching of paws woke her. Max was back, but something was off. His fur was damp, his eyes strangely distant, and around his neck hung something glinting in the early light, a small silver tag that didn't belong to him. Sarah froze. It wasn't his collar tag. It looked old, engraved with symbols she couldn't recognize. When she tried to touch it, Max backed away, whining, almost protective of the strange object. Curiosity battled fear as Sarah followed Max into the backyard again. He led her to the edge of the forest, stopping near the same creek. There, partially buried in mud, was an old wooden box, its corners rotted but still intact. Max pawed at it, whining until Sarah knelt down and helped dig it out. Inside was a collection of items that made her shiver. An old baby's shoe, a faded photo of a child, and a locket identical to the tag Max wore. On the back of the photo, the words that he saved me too were scribbled in faded ink. Sarah's breath caught. "What is this?" she whispered. She looked at Max, whose eyes seemed almost human, filled with something between understanding and sadness. Was this coincidence, or was her dog connected to something much deeper? As she helped him, the air around grew colder. A strange metallic scent filled the air. Suddenly, Max stopped, his paws hitting something solid, a small rusted metal door embedded in the earth. It looked like the entrance to a storm shelter, but far too old to belong to their property. Sarah's hands shook as she brushed away the dirt. The door had the same strange symbol that was on the tag, a circle intersected by 3 lines. Max barked twice, then looked at her, waiting. Sarah swallowed hard, unsure what to do. Everything about this moment felt wrong yet magnetic. Against her better judgment, she pulled the handle. It groaned open, revealing a dark tunnel leading underground. Max went in first, fearless, tail low but determined. Sarah hesitated only a second before following him, flashlight trembling in her hand. The deeper they went, the colder it became, and the more she felt that whatever they were about to uncover wasn't just history. It was a secret tied to Max himself. The tunnel stretched longer than Sarah imagined, carved from damp earth and lined with decaying wood beams. The air grew thick and heavy, each breath tasting of rust and old secrets. Max stayed close, his ears twitching, his nose guiding them deeper. Then suddenly his paw hit something metallic again. A lantern still intact, its glass fogged with age. Sarah lifted it, her flashlight flickering, and noticed faint scratches on the wall beside her. They weren't random marks, they were words. She leaned closer and whispered them aloud, voice shaking. Protect the child. Her blood ran cold. They reached a small underground chamber, circular and eerily silent. In the center lay an old chest, locked tight with a heavy iron clasp. Max circled it, growling low, then sat down, staring at Sarah expectantly. Her hands trembled as she touched the chest, feeling the rough metal biting into her skin. With one pull, the clasp gave way. Inside were stacks of yellowed papers, a worn leather diary, and, shockingly, a photograph of a German shepherd almost identical to Max, standing beside a man in a military uniform. The photo was dated 1942. Sarah picked up the diary, her fingers trembling. The first page read, "A Project Guardian, Phase 2, her heart pounded. Each page revealed entries by a man named Dr. Elias Weber, a German scientist, during World War II. He wrote of a secret experiment, an attempt to genetically enhance dogs for protection, giving them heightened senses, memory, and an uncanny ability to detect danger before it occurred. One line stood out. They are not just protectors, they remember. Sarah froze. Could Max be connected to that? It seemed impossible. As she turned another page, something clattered. Max barked sharply, his gaze fixed on a shadow in the far corner of the chamber. Sarah raised her flashlight and gasped. Embedded into the wall was a small glass capsule, glowing faintly blue. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The tag on Max's neck shimmered in response, the symbols faintly glowing. Sarah dropped the diary, backing away. Max didn't move. He simply stared at the capsule, whining as if drawn to it. Then, before Sarah could react, he placed his paw on the glass. A blinding flash filled the room. The sound was unlike anything Sarah had heard, a low humming vibration that rattled her bones. When it faded, the capsule had cracked open, releasing a faint mist that swirled around them. Sarah coughed, waving her hand, but Max stood tall, unmoving. His eyes, once brown, now glowed faintly amber in the dim light. For a terrifying moment, she thought something had happened to him. But then he looked at her, calm and focused, as if understanding something she couldn't. She stumbled backward, her heart racing. "Max, what's happening to you?" She whispered. He barked once sharply, then nudged the diary toward her. It fell open to a page marked with a small ribbon. The final entry read, "The last of them was released into the wild. They will protect even across generations. When one bonds with a child in danger, the cycle begins again." Sarah stared in disbelief. Across generations, how could her dog be connected to something that began 80 years ago? Later that day, Sarah contacted the local university, bringing the diary and the strange tag to an animal behavior expert, Dr. Lawrence Kane. He listened patiently as she told the story, though his expression shifted from curiosity to astonishment. When he examined Max, he found something remarkable. The dog's microchip data didn't match any registry, and his DNA sample contained sequences unknown to normal canines. "This isn't just any dog," Dr. Kane murmured. "He's something beyond biology, something engineered." Word spread quickly through the scientific community. Teams arrived to observe Max, neurologists, behaviorists, even historians. Max remained calm through it all, never aggressive, but always watchful, especially when Noah was near. One evening, while the experts recorded data, Max began pacing again, barking toward the forest. Dr. Kane followed him, his camera still rolling. Within minutes, they reached the creek, and there, half-submerged, was another silver tag, identical to the one Max wore. The discovery sent shockwaves through the research team. When the second tag was analyzed, it revealed a hidden micro-etching. The morning of their flight, Sarah woke to an eerie silence. The window was open, the curtain fluttering in the wind. Noah still slept soundly, but Max was gone. Panic surged through her chest. She called his name, searched the yard, but there was no trace. The experts delayed the trip, launching a search. Hours turned into days. Then, on the third morning, Max returned, dirty, limping, and carrying something in his mouth. It was a torn piece of an old military jacket. The letters E.W.E.U. Barely visible on it, Dr. Kane went pale. "Elias Weber," he whispered, "the man from the diary." The piece of fabric trembled in Sarah's hands as she stared at the faded initials. It felt like holding a ghost. Dr. Kane examined it closely, confirming the stitching style and thread dated back to the 1940s. There was no rational explanation for how Max could have found something buried for over 80 years. Not in modern-day America, not miles away from any historical site. Yet, there it was. Max lay at her feet, eyes tired but proud, tail thumping weakly against the floor as if to say, "I did what I had to." The team decided to proceed with the Germany trip, this time more determined than ever. Sarah hesitated to let Max go again, but something deep inside told her this was his path. In Bavaria, among the snow-covered ruins of an old facility marked the Weber Institute, they discovered underground tunnels identical to the one behind Sarah's house. Max's behavior changed the moment they arrived. His posture stiffened, his nose twitching as though he recognized the place. When the doors creaked open, he sprinted ahead, barking in short, urgent bursts, guiding them through the darkness. They reached a massive steel door sealed shut by decades of rust. Max began scratching at it with desperate energy, barking furiously. When Sarah and Dr. Kane managed to pry it open, a gust of cold air swept past them, carrying the scent of decay and dust. Inside was a laboratory, glass beakers shattered, papers scattered, old machinery humming faintly with residual energy from a long-dead generator. And on one of the tables lay a photograph in perfect condition. Dr. Elias Weber, standing with a German shepherd that was identical to Max. Every marking, every detail the same. Sarah's heart pounded as she held up the picture beside Max. There was no denying it. "It's him," she whispered. "It's the same dog." Dr. Kane stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. Even with genetic continuity, no animal lives that long." But as they explored further, they found a series of cryogenic chambers, small pods lined against the wall, most empty, one still sealed and intact. On its frosted glass was written a single word, "Guardian." Max whined softly, pressing his nose against the glass as if greeting an old friend. The team powered the old generator, and the remaining lights flickered to life. Inside the chamber lay another German shepherd, perfectly preserved, wearing the same silver tag. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She realized now that Max hadn't just stumbled upon a mystery, he had been called to it. The diary hadn't been just a record, it was a map left for him. Max turned toward her, his amber eyes reflecting the glow of the room, and for a fleeting second she felt something impossible, as though memories not her own were passing through her mind. A battlefield, a soldier, a promise, a protect the child, always. That night in their hotel, Max refused to sleep. He stood by the window, watching the moonlight reflect on the snow. Sarah sat beside him, resting a hand on his head. "You're not just a dog, are you?" she whispered. Max leaned against her, his breath steady, his heartbeat strong. She didn't need an answer. She already knew. There was intelligence behind those eyes, something old and enduring, bound by duty and love. He had saved Noah because that's what he had always been created, or chosen, to do. When team returned to the U.S., Max's story spread across the world. Scientists published papers, journalists wrote articles, and animal lovers everywhere called him the eternal guardian. Yet despite all the attention, Max remained humble, happiest beside Noah, watching him play, guarding him in quiet dignity. The experts wanted more tests, but Sarah refused. "He's done enough," she said softly. "He's not a specimen. He's family." Sarah ran to him, sobbing, calling his name. Max's eyes flickered open one last time. He looked at her, then at Noah, his tail giving a faint wag before growing still. The silence that followed felt like the earth itself had paused to mourn. For days, Sarah couldn't move him, couldn't believe it was over. But when Dr. Kane arrived to collect Max's body, something extraordinary happened. The silver tag around his neck glowed faintly once more. When Kane touched it, it split open, revealing a small folded note sealed in glass. It read, "For every child in danger, a guardian shall rise again." Weeks later, after Max was laid to rest under the oak, Noah began talking about dreams. Dreams of a big dog watching over him, sometimes in light, sometimes in shadow. Sarah smiled through her tears, whispering, "He's still here, sweetheart. He always will be." And on some nights, when the moonlight shone across the yard, a faint silhouette of a German shepherd could be seen near the tree, watching, waiting, forever guarding. The experts had been left speechless, but Sarah knew the truth. Max wasn't a mystery to solve. He was a promise kept across time, across souls, beyond science.